So then, after you group them, you're gonna factor out the number in front of the squared term. So we're factoring out a 9 out of the first two terms, and then you're gonna leave a space for completing the square later. Do that with the y's as well, and leave a space. Now we must complete the square, right? Okay. Take half of 4, which is 2, and then square it. 4. Okay, you're gonna add 4. Typically, whatever we do to one side, we do to the other side. So we would usually add 4 to the right side of the equation. But this is not a 4. This is a 4 in disguise. It is really a 36.
What? That's
by factoring out that 9 out there, in theory, if we were to distribute it back in, that would make the 4 a 36. So it has a higher value than 4. It's a 36. So instead of just adding a 4 over there, we're going to add 36 over there. Then we'll complete the square with the y's. What's half of 2? And then square it. But it's not really a 1, it's really a 4. So we're going to add 4 to the right side. The whole point of completing the square is so that you can rewrite these as binomials squared. So I'm going to take this trinomial and write it as x plus 2 squared instead. And this one's going to be what?
Y minus 1 squared.
Y minus 1 squared.
Equals 36.
Does this look like an ellipse yet?
No.
Kind of.
You have to have a denominator though.
You have to have a denominator. What else?
Divide. Minus. No, that's
It has to be equal to 1. So if we divide stuff, that'll get it to equal 1. If I need this to be a 1, what do I want to divide by?
1 over 36.
36. So I'm going to divide 36 by 36. I'm going to divide this thing by 36, and I'm going to divide this thing by 36. And then I'm going to simplify. So if I simplify, how many times does 9 go into 36? 4. So I get x plus 2 squared over 4. How many times does 4 go into 36?
9.
So I have y minus 1 squared over 9. How many times does 36 go into 36? There we go. That's the point.
And that's it?
So that would be it, but with ellipses, we typically want to put the larger denominator first so that it's more obvious that it's vertical. So we're just going to switch these around to put them in standard form, and that's it. So if c is the square root of 5, and we found a was 4, we're going to do a squared minus b squared equals c squared to find b squared. So a squared is 16, b squared is I don't know, and c squared is 5.
Oh, I thought it was just root 5. Oh, but it's yeah.
Because you have to square it. So 16 minus what is 5?
Oh. 16
11.
minus 11.
So that makes b, or the denominator of y squared, 11.
Cool.
No, come back.
Gary, come home.
Let's look at an example 2.
Hi, YouTube.
So example 2, we have endpoints of axes. So they give you the endpoints of the major axis and the endpoints of the minor axis. Now you can do this one of 2 ways. You can do it visually with graphing, or you can do it not with graphing at all, just other stuff, just looking at numbers and things. So I'll show you both ways. So if you graph it, you have a minor axis point at 2, 3, and at 2, -1. So if the minor axis endpoints are there, then that means that the minor axis is the y. So the major axis would be along the x. So it's longer in the x direction. We're using this. Now you can tell that from simply seeing that it's the y's changing not the x's. And that change in y's tells you that the minor axis is going along the y direction. All right, now it also gives you the endpoints of the major axis, so those are 6, 1, and -2, 1. You can find the center a bunch of different ways. So graphically, if you want to do it visually, you should just be able to connect the major and minor axis endpoints, and in the middle where they meet, that's where your center is. Okay, that's one way. Another way is to find the midpoint of either these 2 points or these 2 points. So for example, let's just look at these two. So we got 2, 3, and 2, -1. If we want to find the middle, we're doing 2 plus 2 over 2, 3 plus -1 over 2. What do we get? We get 4 over 2, which is 2. We get 2 over 2, which is 1. And that would be the center.
I think I might have seen something.
And so the last way,
You just, well, for the center, you can just see the x that stays the same as 2.
Exactly.
And the y that stays the same as 1.
correct. And they have to, in order for it to be the center, you know that it has to stay in the middle of, you know, these guys's and in the middle of these guys's. So it'll have the same x as these guys and the same y's as these guys. So that you're literally just like observing with your eyeballs. The 2 is the same, the 1 is the same, 2 is going to be the x coordinate of the center, and then 1 is going to be the y coordinate of the center. So that's a bunch of different ways that you can find the center. You can do it graphically, you can do it a midpoint way, or you can do it just kind of by observing that the x coordinate didn't move here, the y coordinate didn't move here. So that's like 3 ways. You can also find the midpoint of these 2. You got lots of different options. So the next thing you're going to do is find your A and your B. I'm also missing something. Anyone see what I'm missing?
Equals 1.
Thanks. It's not an equation if it doesn't have an equal sign, so that's bad. So the next thing you'll find is A and B. Now, again, you can do this graphically or you can do it not graphically. Graphically, A would be the distance from the center to what? Yeah, the right or the left. So graphically, I could just count 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, look, it's 4. That makes A squared 16. I almost wrote 4. Non-graphically, let's say you're not a grapher, you don't like showing work, you're Sam. You can just look at how far away one of these points is from the center that you found, right? So look at 2, 1, look at 6, 1. How far is 2, 1 from 6, 1? 4. 4. And it's 4 in the x direction, which is why it goes under x. Okay. Going this way, do the same thing. You can count this distance. So, oh look, count 1, 2, that's 2. Or you can just take a look at one of these points and compare it to the center. How far away are these? 2. So we're going to put 2 squared, which is 4, here. Those are 2 ways to figure out A and B. A third way, you could find like this entire distance, which would be 4, and chop it in half, that would give you 2. Find this entire distance, that would be 8, chop it in half, that would give you the 4. So there's lots of ways that you can figure this out, just depending on what you prefer. If you're like a visual person and you want to maybe sketch a graph. If you don't like that at all, then you do it other ways. You can do it algebraically. There's not a whole lot of work. So it's hard to give partial credit. So if you want to get creative with how you want to show how you got stuff, then you can. What I would do is like what I showed earlier, like how I circled the things, like if that's how you want to do it, that's how you would show how you found your center. You could show how you got 4 by showing a graph, or you can go like this and write like A equals 4, something like that. That's like how you can show work. Okay, but there's not a whole lot of work to be shown.
Good.